Hola mis amigos, ¿cómo están? Si aún no me conocen, mi nombre es Kyle y aquí en mi canal Pensando Inglés les traigo inglés real y comprensible para ayudarles con su inglés. Y hoy voy a hacer algo poco diferente. Les voy a leer este libro. Nunca he leído este libro, pero por internet dicen que es un libro fácil y algo bueno para los que están aprendiendo inglés. Sencillo en la forma que está escrito. A ver, vamos a ver. Espero que les gusta. Por favor, después de ver este video, dime abajo en los comentarios si les gusta. Y si sí, pues seguir leyendo este libro. Tal vez una vez a la semana hasta que podemos terminarlo. Okay. Let's see if this is a good book. So, this book is called The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, okay? And this is a book about a young man, a boy, who has autism, and he is trying to solve a mystery, okay? That's all that I know about this book. First, I'll read you guys the little summary, resumen, on the back. Christopher John Francis Boone knows all the countries of the world and their capitals, and every prime number up to 7,057. He relates well to animals but has no understanding of human emotions. He cannot stand to be touched, and he detests the color yellow. This improbable story of Christopher's quest to investigate the suspicious death of a neighborhood dog makes for one of the most captivating, unusual, and widely heralded novels in recent years. Okay. Sounds pretty good. Let's see if it's a good book. It was 7 minutes after midnight. The dog was lying on the grass in the middle of the lawn in front of Mrs. Shear's house. Its eyes were closed. It looked as if it was running on its side, the way dogs run when they think they are chasing a cat in a dream. But the dog was not running or asleep. The dog was dead. There was a garden fork sticking out of the dog. The points of the fork must have gone all the way through the dog and into the ground because the fork had not fallen over. I decided that the dog was probably killed with the fork because I could not see any other wounds in the dog, and I do not think you would stick a garden fork into a dog after it had died for some other reason, like cancer, for example, or a road accident. But I could not be certain about this. I went through Mrs. Shear's gate, closing it behind me. I walked onto her lawn and knelt beside the dog. I put my hand on the muzzle of the dog. It was still warm. The dog was called Wellington. It belonged to Mrs. Shears, who was our friend. She lived on the opposite side of the road, 2 houses to the left. Wellington was a poodle. Not one of the small poodles that have hairstyles, but a big poodle. It had curly black fur, but when you got close, you could see that the skin underneath the fur was a very pale yellow, like chicken. I stroked Wellington and wondered who had killed him and why. My name is Christopher John Francis Boone. I know all the countries of the world and their capital cities and every prime number up to 7,057. 8 years ago, when I first met Xiaoban, she showed me this picture. And I knew that it meant sad, which is what I felt when I found the dead dog. Then she showed me this picture. And I knew it meant happy. Like when I'm reading about the Apollo space missions, or when I'm still awake at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. in the morning and I can walk up and down the street and pretend that I am the only person in the whole world. Then she drew some other pictures, but I was unable to say what these meant. I got Xiaoban to draw lots of these faces and then write down next to them exactly what they meant. I kept the piece of paper in my pocket and took it out when I didn't understand what someone was saying. but it was very difficult to decide which of the diagrams was most like the face they were making because people's faces move very quickly. When I told Shoban that I was doing this, she got out a pencil and another piece of paper and said it probably made people feel very... And then she laughed. Ha ha ha. So I tore the original piece of paper up and threw it away. And Shoban apologized, and now if I don't know what someone is saying, I ask them what they mean or I walk away. Now, this word, where is it? Shoban. It's a name. It's a weird name, but it's a name. I pulled the fork out of the dog and lifted him into my arms and hugged him. He was leaking blood from the fork holes. I like dogs. You always know what a dog is thinking. It has 4 moods: happy, sad, cross, and concentrating. Also, dogs are faithful, and they do not tell lies because they cannot talk. I had been hugging the dog for 4 minutes when I heard screaming. I looked up and saw Mrs. Shears running towards me from the patio. She was wearing pajamas and a housecoat. Her toenails were painted bright pink, and she had no shoes on. She was shouting, okay guys, it says a bad word here. It says a bad word, okay? I'm gonna say it because it's part of the book, but it's a bad word. What in fuck's name have you done to my dog? I do not like people shouting at me. It makes me scared that they are going to hit me or touch me. I do not know what is going to happen. Let go of the dog, she shouted. Let go of the fucking dog, for Christ's sake. I put the dog down on the lawn and moved back 2 meters. She bent down. I thought she was going to pick up the dog herself, but she didn't. Perhaps she noticed how much blood there was and didn't want to get dirty. Instead, she started screaming again. I put my hands over my ears and closed my eyes and rolled forward till I was hunched with my forehead pressed onto the grass. The grass was wet and cold. It was nice. This is a murder mystery novel. Shoban said that I should write something I would want to read myself. Mostly I read books about science and math. I do not like proper novels. In proper novels, people say things like, I am veined with iron, with silver, and with streaks of common mud. I cannot contract into the firm fists with those clench who do not depend on stimulus. What does this mean? I do not know, nor does my father, nor does Shoban, or Mr. Jevons. I have asked them. Shoban has long blonde hair and wears glasses which are made of green plastic, and Mr. Jevons smells of soap and wears brown shoes that have approximately 60 tiny circular holes in each of them. But I do like murder mystery novels, so I am writing a murder mystery novel. In a murder mystery novel, someone has to work out who the murderer is and catch them. It is a puzzle. If it is a good puzzle, you can sometimes work out the answer before the end of the book. Shoban said that the book should begin with something to grab people's attention. That is why I started with the dog. I also started with the dog because it happened to me, and I find it hard to imagine things which did not happen to me. Shoban read the first page and said that it was different. She put this word into inverted commas by making the wiggly quotation signs with her first and second fingers. She said that it was usually people who were killed. It was usually people who were killed in murder mystery novels. I said that 2 dogs were killed in The Hound of Baskervilles. The Hound itself and James Mortimer's spaniel. But Shoban said they weren't victims of the murder. Sir Charles Baskerville was. She said that this was because readers cared more about people than dogs, so if a person was killed in a book, readers would want to carry on reading. I said that I wanted to write about something real, and I knew people who had died, but I did not know any people who had been killed except Mr. Paulson, Edward's father, from school. And that was a gliding accident, not a murder, and I didn't really know him. I also said that I cared about dogs because they were faithful and honest, and some dogs were cleverer and more interesting than some people. Steve, for example, who comes to school on Thursdays, needs help to eat his food and could not even fetch a stick. Shaban asked me not to say this to Steve's mother. Then the police arrived. I like the police. They have uniforms and numbers, and you know what they are meant to be doing. There was a policewoman and a policeman. The policewoman had a little hole in her tights on her left ankle and a red scratch in the middle of the hole. The policeman had a big orange leaf stuck to the bottom of his shoe, which was poking out from one side. The policewoman put her arms around Mrs. Shears and led her back towards the house. I lifted my head off the grass. The policeman squatted down beside me and said, "Would you like to tell me what's going on here, young man?" I sat up and I said, "The dog is dead." "I got that far," he said. I said, "I think someone killed the dog." "How old are you?" he asked. I replied, "I am 15 years and 3 months and 2 days." "And what precisely were you doing in the garden?" he asked. "I was holding the dog," I replied. "And why were you holding the dog?" he asked. This was a difficult question. It was something I wanted to do. I like dogs. It made me sad to see that the dog was dead. I like policemen too, and I wanted to answer the question properly, but the policeman did not give me enough time to work out the correct answer. "Why were you holding the dog?" he asked again. "I like dogs," I said. "Did you kill the dog?" he asked. I said, "I did not kill the dog." "Is this your fork?" he asked. I said, "No." "You seem very upset about this," he said. He was asking too many questions, and he was asking them too quickly. They were stacking up in my head like loaves in the factory where Uncle Terry works. The factory is a bakery, and he operates the slicing machine. And sometimes the slicer is not working fast enough, but the bread keeps coming and there is a blockage. I sometimes think of my mind as a machine, but not always a bread slicing machine. It makes it easier to explain to other people what is going on inside it. The policeman said, "I'm going to ask you once again." I rolled back onto the lawn and pressed my forehead to the ground again and made the noise that Father calls groaning. I make this noise when there is too much information coming into my head from the outside world. It is like when you are upset and you hold the radio against your ear and you tune it halfway between 2 stations so that all you get is white noise. And then you turn the volume up so that this is all you can hear, and then you know you are safe because you cannot hear anything else. The policeman took hold of my arm and lifted me onto my feet. I didn't like him touching me like this, and this is when I hit him. Okay guys, I'm going to stop right there for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I think it's a good English challenge. Tell me down below if you like this. If you guys like this, I'll keep on reading this book. We'll finish this whole book and get you guys a lot of input. Alright? I really hope this was enjoyable for you guys. Something a little different. I really love to read. So I would really enjoy reading books to you guys as a form of input, because I think that it is one of the best ways that we can hear new vocabulary, learn new words, and really work on our comprehension. Alright, my friends, como siempre, muchísimas gracias por ver. Nos vemos